We're now recording and I'm going to start the presentation. So thank you everyone who joined this teacher information session, or rather this recording. Very briefly, the agenda of what we're going to go through in this following 20 minutes approximately. We're going to very quickly have an introduction to global citizenship education. We're going to have a discussion on how it can benefit your classroom. And then I will briefly run through our free resources. I also want to note that this is a really brief introduction. If you have any questions or want to reach out, we'll be happy to schedule a chat with you and cover our resources, or maybe you have any further question on global citizenship education. So my name is Anya. I work with GOAL NextGen. You see our logo there on the bottom right. GOAL NextGen is a global citizenship education program of GOAL, GOAL Global, and GOAL is a humanitarian NGO. You can see on the bottom left as well the logo of Irish Aid, and that is because Irish Aid is our main donor for GOAL NextGen, and it is with their generous support that we're able to give you and our youth and our general public free workshops and free resources. I am also joined today by my colleague Grace, and huge thanks to and welcome to Grace, but I will touch on her role a little bit later on. So let's get straight to it. What is global citizenship education? I find it very useful to introduce global citizenship education through 3 stages, and those are the 3 stages that we articulate our workshop around as well. The keywords here are educate, explore, and empower. So all of our workshops, activities, events educate about the issues that will define the 21st centuries. That is including climate change, hunger, peace, global inequality, and justice. Then once there's this basic understanding of those issues, we explore the root causes of these issues and accompany the learner in his own journey of understanding the connections and global interdependence of these issues. And I think something really important here is that we accompany the learner because we want our audience to make those connections themselves. Then finally, what do we mean by empowering and educating the audience to take action is that all of our workshop focus on the positive actions and what positive change our audience can enact on the world. So I want to go back just for a second on number 2 there. What do we mean by global interdependence? And how do we do this really? So through activities, we build an understanding that we are part of a global community, that what happens in one part of the world can have an impact on other parts of the world. And once those 3 steps are achieved, what is the goal? What it is that we're trying to leave your pupils with? We are trying to make sure that at the end of our workshop, your pupils are 1 step closer to being global citizens that understand, critically assess global systems and act for a sustainable, equal and fair world for all. So you can see on the left, my colleague Jessica there with pupils having a change makers workshop. But you might have a lot of questions, including what are our resources based on? That's a very, very broad topic. All the global issues are raised are very complex issues. How do you bring that to the classroom? So first of all, it's really, really important for us to take into consideration when we develop resources, but also when we have our workshops and after our workshops, to take into consideration the realities of the classroom. To do that, first of all, we have the Teachers Advisory Group. That group is recruited every year. And if you're interested, you'll have all details at the end of this presentation. And we welcome you to reach out and ask our questions or maybe submit your candidature. We're always looking for teachers to advise us on our workshops, the quality of our workshops, and give us feedback. Our teachers are very actively involved in developing our resources because it's important for us to make sure that these resources are actually responding to the needs of the classroom. They're also curriculum-based, and they're using drama methodologies. Finally, our resources are also adapted to each class to make sure that we cover areas that are of interest to your pupils, that are fitting into your own curriculum agenda and what it is you're doing in your classroom, and also how our pupils react or the time you have. So a second element of our workshops is that they're based on UN Sustainable Development Goals. A very short introduction to the goals, and apologies if you're familiar with them. The 17 global goals, as they're also called, were introduced in 2015. The aim when they were adopted is for them to be achieved by 2030. We found it was a great focal point when introducing children to issues at a surface level. And that is in part because it's a great way of looking forward to what a sustainable and more equal future looks like, focusing on solutions and action, as these issues can often be overwhelming for young pupils. Another strength of these goals that also features in our workshops is that they're all interconnected. So an important element of our workshops is that we want the pupils to understand that not one goal can be achieved without the others, that they're all interdependent, and that achieving one brings us closer to achieving the 16 others, and that only by achieving all 17 together will we reach a sustainable future fair for all. Finally, we also base our workshop on goals work. As I mentioned, GOAL is a humanitarian and development organization. We have programs in 13 countries. We are one of the programs operating in Ireland, so GOAL NextGen is fully part of GOAL. Our programs are operating around 3 main goals. We support communities to survive crisis, we help them build resilient health, and we support them in food and nutrition security. A very important element for GOAL in all of our programs is that they are gender aware and inclusive. If you're interested in any more of GOAL's work, what we do, how we operate, we really encourage you to visit our website. There's a lot of impact stories. There's more information on how we aim at being gender aware and inclusive, and more information about safeguarding as well. So bringing back to that element of, I guess, being aware of what a classroom needs, and the priority and focus that GOAL puts on making sure all of our programs, including our program, which is Global Citizenship Education, is gender inclusive. I was very lucky to be able to bring to you Grace today, who is GOAL's Gender and Inclusivity Advisor, to tell you maybe a bit more about what it is that we do in GOAL to ensure our programs are safe, and how this translates into global citizenship education and how this could benefit your classroom. So thank you again so much, Grace, for joining today. And I'll stop sharing so you can share your slides, and yeah, up to you.
Great, thanks so much, Anya. You might let me know if that's successfully popped up on your side.
Yeah, it has, yeah.
Fantastic, thanks again. So as Anya mentioned, my name is Grace, and I'm part of a team in GOAL that's called the Program Technical Team. And my focus within that team is on gender equality and social inclusion within our programs, and particularly within the programs we have in the different countries across the globe. So I've been asked to speak a little about gender equality and social inclusion in our programming, just as one example of some of the experiences and insights that we can help bring to the classroom. I know we only have a few minutes today, so I'll just speak to that briefly, but we can always pick up in these conversations at other times. So an important point that Anya mentioned there were the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. And I'd always like to highlight SDG number 5 is on gender equality, and SDG number 10 is on reducing inequalities. So we can already see the links there and how these issues are really being highlighted and elevated at a global level. So one of the questions that often comes to me is why? Why do we need to think about or consider gender equality and social inclusion in our programming? And really it comes down to 2 overarching key drivers for why we do this. Firstly, gender equality and social inclusion, really it's a human rights issue. Effectively, it's about creating conditions where every person, regardless of their gender, their age, disability or ability or other factor, that they have the right and the ability to realize their human potential. And secondly, alongside this as well, greater gender equality and social inclusion, these contribute to the achievement of key development outcomes. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. So there's evidence out there that shows us that gender equality is necessary and critical to achieve a wide range of other objectives, whether that's health-related objectives, poverty reduction, educational outcomes, food security, and so on. So gender equality and social inclusion can really be an accelerator that triggers those positive multiplier effects when we talk about development and humanitarian work, and therefore the achievement of our program objectives. And we see this as well with the Sustainable Development Goals. So while we may have a standalone goal on gender equality, for example, we see these issues integrated across all of the other goals, their targets, their indicators, just recognizing its necessity for achieving these other outcomes. And this comes back to the interdependency that Anya spoke about just a moment ago. So there's a lot on this slide, and I don't want to talk through it in detail today, but I did think it was useful to show that these are some of the areas or domains that can be influenced by social and gender norms in the various contexts where GOAL works. And I include Ireland in that as well. So in all of our work and our programming, it's really critical that we consider these areas from a gender perspective, an age perspective, a disability perspective, and so on. Considering as well, indeed, how these factors, they can overlap or they can intersect. So, for example, asking ourselves, how is labour, paid and unpaid labour, how's that divided within a household and outside a household? Or considering as well, who has access to different resources and assets? Who controls these resources and assets? And who doesn't? Maybe also asking, what are the barriers people might face to their mobility and their freedom of movement? And is this different for different people? And so on. So these are the kind of questions we consistently ask ourselves when we're thinking about gender equality and social inclusion across all of our programming work in GOAL. So how we do this in practice, how do we think about and integrate gender and inclusion in our work? And it's really, really hard to give an answer for this because it can look very, very different from context to context. But there are some common pillars that are useful to think about. We think about the different needs that people might have and how do we respond to those? People may have different needs, they may have their own different priorities and their own capabilities. And these can be quite diverse among people and among different groups of people. So we need to make sure we recognize and we respond to that in our work. Another element is also about encouraging and supporting the participation and the engagement of different groups of people in our programming, all the way from the beginning of a program where it's being designed and planned, when it's being implemented, and when we're reflecting, learning, and evaluating about our program. And one way that we do this, of course, is recognizing the expertise of local actors, local networks, local stakeholders, that have mandates for be that gender equality, social inclusion. So we'll often see in our work engagement with women's groups, youth networks, sometimes as well older people's associations, organizations of persons with disabilities, and so on, to really support this sense of participation and engagement. We also look very strongly at supporting equitable and meaningful access to goods and services and assistance. And to do this, we really need to identify and try and dismantle those barriers that people may face. And these barriers can exist for a number of reasons. They may be related to gender, age, ethnicity, race, other factors, and these sometimes can vary from context to context. So how do we identify those barriers and work at addressing them to ensure that people can access goods, services, and assistance? And to do all this, we also make sure that our approach and our programming really is rooted in evidence, that we've got the right analyses, assessments, and data to ensure that our programming reaches those who may be excluded and who may be facing barriers. And again, supporting all of this, we recognize that achieving inclusive programming and gender sensitive programming, it's everyone's responsibility, as well as warranting specialized knowledge, skills, and resources in some cases. And we work with our staff to strengthen core knowledge, and we collaborate with partners and organizations who can support in this as well. So really, gender equality and social inclusion, it cuts across all we do in any type of programming. So whether that's work on health, on food security, on emergency response, and so on. And indeed, as well as we would often say, mainstreaming or integrating these considerations across this work, we also have those activities and initiatives that specifically focus on tackling social and gender-based inequalities. This might be pieces of work to address gender-based violence. It could be programs and work that supports economic empowerment and financial inclusion of those who are perhaps facing marginalization. It could be work on maternal and reproductive health of young women and men, and as well as work to effect positive change around norms, attitudes, and behaviors. And along with all this, we're very aware that work around gender equality and social inclusion, it takes time, particularly when we're talking about norms, attitudes, behaviors, and practice. And as part of this work, it is really very important that we meet communities and individuals where they're at, and we work alongside them. So coming back to our topic today, I suppose issues related to gender equality and social inclusion, they can manifest in similar ways or in very different ways in different contexts. Yet I always feel there's a universality to these issues that we can all relate to in one way or another. And for me, that's really where the link with global citizenship education is so valuable. It's really an opportunity to bring experience, insights, and learnings from our programs to the classroom and to exchange ideas there and to make that global connection to different topics, the example in this case being around gender and inclusion. And we've had great experience bringing these topics into other global citizenship initiatives, such as GOAL's NextGen youth program, where we had a lot of lively idea sharing, debate, and discussion on gender equality and social inclusion. And we were able to highlight the commonalities as well as the differences that we as individuals all observed from our own experiences, our own understandings, and our own perspective. Some common and some very different. So there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to share. And we really hope that, we can use this opportunity to bring some of the insights from GOAL's programming into the classroom and vice versa. I'll pause there, and Anya, back over to you.
Thank you so much, Grace. That's a very insightful, overview and very short. I'm impressed. Covered so much in such a short amount of time, and it's just so important for us to show how much of this experience of practice is embedded as well in global citizenship education, because it is an important element that we can bring to a classroom through our workshops, because it is this experience that fed the development of these resources. So I will share my screen again, if this works. Great. So this brings me, I guess, to our resources. At the moment, we are updating most of them, but there's 2 that we can offer to classrooms right now. And before we start, I just wanted to show you some pictures of some of our recent workshops. On the right there, we have some exercise of very active connection makings from our Changemaker workshop. And this is a project on the left you can see from our pupils, young pupils, who did a project as a follow-up of their Water Wishes workshop, exploring the importance of our water resources around the world. As you can see, it's very active. It's we're using drama methodology. We are using things that help them visualize those very complex issues, including some of which Grace covered in her presentation. So the first resource I'd like to talk to you about is GOAL Changemakers. The great thing about this resource is that it can, it's a workshop that we can do with 1st to 6th class students. It's a very flexible workshop that can be really suited to the needs of your class. It's a workshop which aim is to encourage pupils to understand and contribute to the United Nations global goals by taking part in learning activities and undertaking meaningful action to bring about positive change to their level, of course. So GOAL Changemakers is full of standalone activities, quizzes, follow-up projects, and it is great for any classes that are looking to deepen an understanding of the Sustainable Development Goals in general, or goal in specific. As I mentioned earlier on, maybe your class is studying a goal in particular, whether it's climate change, gender equality. We can come in with that expertise, with stories from our programs, and then anchor it in exercises that will help your pupils to make connections. And then we offer them possible paths to action. And as well, how could I forget, we introduce them to other change makers in Ireland and around the world to hopefully inspire them to become change makers themselves. And then Water Wishes is a teacher resource to support 1st and 2nd class pupils to explore and acknowledge the importance of our shared world with a focus on water resources. And there's a picture of our fantastic students who enjoyed the workshop so much they wanted to do a follow-on project on World Oceans Day. And if you check our social media or YouTube, you can see some of the projects they did. Water Wishes is a really interactive workshop. It uses storytelling, it uses games, it's very active, and at the same time, it really explores the issue in depth if that is something your class is interested in. So as a follow-up, I guess, we have frequently asked questions. Are our workshops and resources free? Absolutely. How to register, mail us on at globalc@goal.ie. You don't have to have a specific date and time. You might just have questions or would like to see our resources and cannot find them, or you're not sure whether this is the right resource for you. Just email us and we're always very happy to reply to you within 2 working days. How long is a workshop? That's fully up to you. On average, it lasts between 45 and 50 minutes, but we can make it in 2 sessions. We can make them shorter, we can make them longer, we can have follow-ups or not at all. So it's really up to you and what you and your class needs. The teachers need to prepare something before or after the workshop. That is fully up to you as well. We have standalone activities, we have potential follow-up projects, which we assist you with. But we understand that class capacity, planning, schedule are always a factor, and we don't want these workshops to be any more work for you. So reach out to us and we can work something that suits best your schedule and your availabilities. Can I see the resource beforehand? Absolutely. They're all available for download online on our website. This recording is on YouTube and all the links are below. You can also email us at globalc@goal.ie if you can't find them or need support in any way. Can I facilitate the workshop, or do you come into the classroom? Again, that's up to you. We offer both options. We can train you in workshops. If you'd like a session with us, we can come into your classroom, or we can have a session with you online or with your pupils online. We can train you to the workshop so that you can have that resource with you in the future, or we can come, all the costs are covered by GOAL. So please do feel free to reach out and see what option works best for you. So thank you very, very much. I encourage you to follow us on our social media channel. We are on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle is there. It's at GOAL NextGen. You can send us a personal message. We tend to reply very, very quickly, and that might be the easiest way to reach us. You can also see a lot of pictures, videos of everything we do. We not only work with schools, we also work with the young people and the public. So our social media is the best way, I guess, to see what event we are at. Do come at events if you can. It's a great way to chat and often to meet some of our young change makers, including those that Grace mentioned. Our young people in our programs are often at events with us. So YouTube is where you can find a lot of our resources, workshops, and webinars like these. And you can find us on YouTube at GOAL NextGen. And again, any questions, follow up, or resources you'd like, just email us at globalc@goal.ie. Thank you so much, and we hope to hear from you soon. And thank you, Grace.